Well, thanks for asking me for a chat. I will admit um my internet isn't brilliant. I need to upgrade it, and
Uh,
so
it's coming in.
there's a
Yeah,
little bit of lag.
there'll be a little lag. We're not trying to interrupt each other, but actually, once it caught, it's doing pretty good right now. So
Oh, good.
I just clicked live. So let me. It takes about 2 minutes when we use Zoom. Let me just. I'm gonna put my phone on my page so we can. I can see a few comments anyway, just from that platform.
Well,
So it's
thanks for sending me the Zoom because that's what I'm used to. So that was
yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah. No problem at all. Yeah. So yeah, it's good to meet you, and thanks for coming in and sharing space with us. Uh, we have a tendency just to get to know people spontaneously in front of a bunch of people. So
Yeah. Well, it is a kind of a strange thing, this whole meetup thing where you're meeting each other and you've got an audience.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we've done like 3,200 shows now, and I find that I've probably only talked to like 10 people before a show. Like, what are you going to talk about? And I'm like, no, we're just going to have a conversation. So
Sorry, did you say 3,200?
yeah, we've done 3,200 since I think. Let's see, um, we've actually done about 5,000
Wow.
plus video productions.
Yeah.
Different types of video productions, but
Yeah.
actually shows we've done 3,200. Let's see, we had 3,100 at the end of the year, and we've slowed down a bit. We're like at 30, approaching 3,200.
Well, that in itself is amazing. Just
Yeah, we used to do a lot. We used to do like 70, 80, 90 a month. Like
bloody hell.
some days we do like six a day.
Yeah.
But now we do like
Six,
two, sometimes three, sometimes one.
six a day.
Yeah, there was a time in 2018 and 2019 when we would do. I know we had some months where we went over 90. So
Wow.
that'd
Hold
be
on, I just need to
yeah,
plug something in.
yeah, right on. So how's it going, everybody? We got a new brother in the house, a new friend. I see Sandra and Allender in the audience. Good to see you. Just had a great conversation with our friend Kirsty Lee yesterday. So we got Mr. Tim Cliss is with us from
Hi, everybody.
UK, and I didn't recognize the name, and I was looking for a picture, and then I found Tim Cliss dash non-duality, which I think is your page, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so I asked Morgan, like, where'd this guy come from? I've never seen him. And she said, well, I saw some poetry. She
I
saw
just
some yeah,
I
she
just
saw some
appeared from
poetry.
nowhere.
What's that?
I just appeared from nowhere.
Right, didn't we all? That's the big question. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I here?
Yeah,
But
we can have a chat about that if you want.
yeah, yeah, that's what we do on this show. I like
Right.
to ask people, have you always been this weird, or did you ever wake up? But no, she told me she saw some poetry that you wrote, and she's not easily impressed. She's got a pretty good eye for really good stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's cool because I like to write poetry and do a little rhyming and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I went to your page, I looked around a little bit, and here we are. But yeah, so see, we're a couple minutes. We got about 70 people in the house.
Well,
Um,
out of interest, I mean, the if you wanted to see what I'm about, the place to
yeah,
go is my website, which is timclissthis.com.
Tim Cliss this. I saw something that said maybe it was your Instagram. It said Tim Cliss nothing or something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, I've named it various platforms. I've got a different name. The website is also called This Deafening Silence,
This deafening silence.
which is also the title of my book.
This deafening silence.
Yeah.
So, did you have a wake up experience, or did you just were you just come? Did you just come out of the womb this way?
Well, yeah, if I was talking about an awakening experience, that happened when I was 33 or 34. So it's about
A couple of
26
years ago. Oh,
26,
26.
26 years ago.
Oh, you're looking good for your age.
Oh yeah, I've really looked after myself. Yeah, incredibly well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I describe as the awakening experience, which that's sort of, you could say, set me off seeking what was that
So that would have
experience.
happened in what, the early 90s?
Yeah, it was 91.
Wow. Wow. So what happened in 91? Was it?
No, not 91. What are we in now? No, that'd make it more. It was 90. It's when just before my daughter was born. So it was 93, summer 93. I think it was June the 20th.
So you had your wake up experience about the time David Icke did, just
But
around the same time that he went on that Terry what's his name show when he got really
yeah,
sick.
it could have been. Yeah. And then, yeah, from then on, I was trying to make sense of that awakening experience, so
So
called.
what happened in the awakening experience?
Um, it's really hard to do. It was really very indescribable, but then you kind of, you have to try and make sense of it. And there were no words involved. So the words come, so the words are never it. That's very obvious. But
Yes.
in trying to make sense of it, there was no time. That was really very clear. So I kind of initially said time stops, time stood still, but it was really more than that. It was the absence of time, that time wasn't real. That was, you could say that was revealed. I mean, it's all a bit much to say anything about it, but,
I
and the
mean,
other thing, there was no
yeah.
separation. So I was walking with some kids. I was a PE teacher at the time, phys ed teacher, and I was taking some kids on an outdoor pursuits trip, and we were hiking in the Peak District near Derbyshire, in the hills, and we were walking up this steep slope with rocks and trees, the trees growing out of the rocks, and then it was as if the veil was lifted and the curtains drawn back. Now I only know that they were metaphors afterwards. So at the time I didn't think that, but then they became, oh yeah, there's other people have had similar experiences. And the most overwhelming sense of it was that I knew the rocks and the trees and they knew me. In fact, I was the rocks and the trees, and the rocks and the trees were me. And that was the only way I could sort of try and make sense of this absence of being separate from anything else. Because all there was in this environment were the rocks and the trees. And it was sublime. And the other thing was, obviously, it didn't last because I tried to think, how long did this experience last for? And it didn't last for any time.
Wow.
It,
So
it
did
was it wasn't like it lasted minutes or hours. There was no time involved.
well, I mean, this stuff's important because we know there's no linear.
Yeah.
That's just a construct here, but because so many people are going through this now, and in so many different ways. So there could very well be somebody that hears this because this is where all the weird people hang out, uh, and that has kind of gone through the same thing. Because you're right. A lot of these, what you would call divine episodes, or what people might even call downloads. A lot of the time, they only last just a moment, right? And
Yeah.
then you're going, did I just get that, or am I crazy, or did you have any
Well,
of that?
the reason I say it didn't last any time is I was walking up this slope, and I've got 25 or 30 kids walking behind me in a line. They're all following me. And I didn't stop. And so it wasn't even a stride. That's how long it lasted.
Wow. I
Yeah.
wonder if you were like, because I know there's a lot of really powerful portals all over the world, but I mean, UK's, for some reason or another, maybe from Atlantis or whatever, has a lot of power places. I wonder if you were like walking through a portal or something.
Well, I mean, I will say what I speak about now, I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with that awakening experience.
Yeah.
And
Do you
yet
feel
all it seems is in the story, that experience seemingly was the catalyst that sent me seeking what was that about? That it was about that what I thought was real, what was reality and what was true wasn't. What I'd been told wasn't. I didn't know what it was. And I will say, I didn't find out what it was. I haven't found that out. So the revelation, the seeming revelation, all it did was sent this character, this human being on a search for, and what I found was that there is actually nothing to find.
true? Yeah. Nothing is everything. Well, and I know that sounds cliche, but
It is cliched. I say it all the time and people tell me it's cliched. And I said, well, it's about the best we've got, really.
yeah. Well, yeah, because everybody's had their own experiences with, you might call it the void, right?
Yeah. I do quite often.
Yeah, and I can remember several different occasions, lucid dream, moment like you're talking about, and I remember the first time it happened to me, and I don't even know what age I was. I couldn't have been. I'm like in my 20s, basically,
Right.
And I just remember having this lucid dream, and then all of a sudden, how dreams are, they're like action, 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 and then all of a sudden there was this noise like poof, like a kind of a soft bomb or soft explosion, and the next thing I know, there was just this kind of tone, and I'm just like floating in this black abyss, and it scared the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
then,
thing about, I mean, I speak a lot about the void or the abyss. I tend to speak usually of it. I describe it usually as emptiness. And it is what self is terrified of, because there's no knowing.
That's right.
There's no knowing in the void.
Yeah.
It's so obviously unknowable.
It's that nothing that actually contains everything. It's weird. I always say, well, why did they say in the Bible, let there be light? What did that tell you? That there was nothing but nothing, before that happened.
Well, and and I don't see it, and that there's been any change in that.
Yeah. So how did that experience change your life? I mean, was the catalyst for you to start seeking?
Yeah, it was. From then on, I looked at everything that seemed to speak about, because maybe it was awakening. So I found this word awakening, and I found this word enlightenment, which, being a phys ed teacher, being very physical, being very in the body, you could say, I hadn't been a spiritual seeker up until that point. And I would say that I still wasn't a spiritual seeker. I was just trying to make sense of this. I will say I tried to forget about it.
You did.
I did try to, because I remember it was so wonderful that I was desperate to tell everybody. And so I told my friends, and all I ever got was just this blank expression back. I got no, I was really excited. So I'd go, you'd never guess what, I've had this incredible experience. And to a man, to a woman, everyone just, oh yeah, and then carried on with the conversation about, would you like a coffee? And it was it was no big deal, because of course it isn't a big deal, because it's only a big deal when to the human being it happens to everyone else. It's, unless you're also on the path of seeking, that.
Well, I mean, that story will hold water here, because one of the standard characteristics of people that come on the show, it seems to be, when we wake up, we want to go tell everybody,
Yeah.
And then everybody goes, like, they react the way your friends did, or they'll just say, he's crazy. And we start to become kind of on the outside looking in our old circles. Yeah. Did that happen to you, like with family and friends?
Yeah. I think it's inevitable. It can't not, really.
Do you see that pattern reoccurring now? I mean, a lot of people talk about a great divide. There's obviously, if you just take any issues, and of course we know what the biggest issue in the world has been the last 2 years, the biggest program being presented or whatever you want to call it. But like, there's people on one side or the other in a lot of
Hmm.
things in life, I guess. But yeah, have you seen that as a reoccurring thing? Like, say, these circles closest to you that maybe you kind of moved outside of. Do you see any of them coming back? Have you had any reconnections? What's
Well,
that been like?
I will say, I mean, the divisions are obvious, but all divisions it's just so blatantly clear that all divisions come from this sense of being me, this sense
Yeah,
of self.
yeah,
And self is intrinsically divisive because self is separate from everyone else, everything else, is essentially selfish. How can self not be selfish? Is the nature of self. Self-absorbed, self-conscious, self-aware. All of these, there's while most human beings, virtually all human beings, have a conviction that they are a separate individual self that is isolated from everything else.
mm-hmm.
And that's the lived experience of what it is for most human beings. Then of course there'll always be constant division, because what I'm always looking for is selves like me to join with. And really what that normally means is the ones who agree with my beliefs, who go
Right,
along with my beliefs. Yeah.
right. Come sit in my bucket. Sit in my basket.
Yeah.
Come play on my playground.
And
But
of course, and those who disagree, they're always a threat. They're seen as a direct threat to what I've established to be the truth.
yeah, yeah,
And this whole notion that as an individual human being, you could know the truth, for me, that's the most divisive thing of all.
yeah. Until you find out there's no truth to know, like it just is, or
Absolutely.
whatever that is. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, God, what were you just talking about? I just woke up like 45 minutes
Oh,
ago.
did you?
Yeah, I tend to get up about noon. Um, yeah, you were just talking about. Oh, so yeah, I think that whole thing in regard to polarity, I guess, one side or the other.
Hmm.
It seems like it's being tested because I know a lot of people can relate to what you're saying in your kind of like in your experience, one way or the other, and then just your interactions or lack thereof with people. But like it seems like there's an air of I don't know how to say this, but like there's a different feeling or maybe perspective. And I'm not saying it's rampant and I'm not saying it's a vast majority, but where people are actually going, like you hear a lot of people, for instance, on the vax issue. We've had people come on and talk about getting it and people that won't get it. It's not a big subject, but just as a point of reference, where they respect the other's choice and they don't really have a charge one way or the other just for themselves. This is the path that they're going to take, or this is the
Hmm.
frequency they align with, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It seems like it's, getting tested. This divisiveness, this separation, this ability to have a certain stance or position and accept the opposing one or the opposite one.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're running into that.
Well, yeah, of course. You can't be alive at the moment and not run into the conflict between this everyone must get vaccinated and no one must get vaccinated. They're the two extreme standpoints. And if you can't win when you really don't have a strong view on it, which I don't. There's no strong view, because every human being just does whatever they feel is right, and there's no way around it. There isn't really the choice is choiceless. There you go. That's how that it
Yeah.
seems obvious that human beings have the illusion that they're choosing, but from the conditioning and the nature of that human being, there is no choice.
Do you think now a lot of people in these circles would concur with the narrative that our first exercise of free will, if you will, in regard to this realm or this incarnation, was initiated by a choice to come here.
Yeah.
And that there's this, by a lot of people's accounts, there's this range of free will that you can't find in other planetary experiences. But like, in regard to that, what are your thoughts? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious as to where you're coming from, because I don't pick a side here, or do my best not to. But like, do you feel like our lives here are predetermined, or maybe planned, and then the free will is kind of the wild card in the middle of it?
No, not at all. None of that.
None of that. How do you feel about it?
So in order for there to be predestiny, for there to be destiny, there has to be something before, and there is nothing before what's happening. There is only this mystery that we call life happening.
Right.
And in that mystery, there are stories about what seems to have happened in the past, and there can be imagining of anything in that. And then there's also the imagination of what's to come, and hopes and dreams and fantasies. But they're all happening in this, as this, not really in this. There isn't a this for what's happening to happen in the happening, and so what I would say is the void, the emptiness, the no thing, and the things that seem to be occurring, happening, they're not two. That, for me, that's really the whole message that that seems to be wants to be said, and it really wants to be said. And there's no point in saying it, because it doesn't alter anything, but just that what self is, what nearly all human beings, with a sense, conviction that they have free will and choice, that is the root of virtually all suffering.
Free will.
Yeah. Power, personal power.
Yeah.
Because free will is, I mean, that's my power. The power is I could do otherwise.
Yeah.
I could, and I choose my own path. I mean, I would say it's the overriding religion, regardless of what religion you follow, the conviction, the core belief of most selves is that I have power over my own life. And of course, you need free will and volition and personal autonomy to do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think so much of what, I guess you could say life is, and I'm speaking in, like in respect to this incarnation, because that's all I know. I say this all the time, like, I understand where you're coming from. But why is it that I am conscious 99% of the time as this self, so to speak, and 1% of the time, and of course these numbers I think are changing, but 1% of the time I'm connected to some kind of multidimensionality, like
Right.
like Akashic, like just to everything, and why is it that we're the vast majority of the time conscious here? There's got to be some relevance to it. Is there a riddle? Is there a trick?
Yeah.
Is there I look at it sometimes a lot like a video game. And the video game has certain structures. I've talked to people, some pretty credible people, as well, that talk about other planetary experiences. I've had my own a few months ago. I had a few experiences, or I guess, I don't know, downloads or whatever you want to call it, to where I was actually in these other planetary spaces, and it wasn't like somebody was explaining everything to me. It was all based on vibration and feeling, but I could feel the lack of range within those planetary experiences, or those whatever they are. I could feel the lack of, the boundaries of free will, let's just say. And, I don't know. I mean, it's and what I was going to say is it is in this experience to me more and more every day. This whole 0 point field that we talk about is a paradoxical field, you
Hmm.
know, where both are true at the same time, and that seems to be some type of aligning mechanism or approach or process that brings us closer to nothingness. You know, because if everything is being put into this field and it's all one and the same thing, it's like oneness is oneness and there's no exceptions.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know about planetary experiences. I don't know anything. You know, when you speak about that, I have no experience. I have no. It just doesn't mean anything. I mean, this is. I don't know of any other dimensions. I don't know
Right.
anything about any of that. For me, it just seems really very clear that there's no escape from this, and I could I maybe I could imagine other dimensions. Maybe I could imagine, but they would be imagining that's happening
And then
as this.
is the imagining as real as this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, because
Well,
like I get what you're saying. Like
yeah,
you have like let's just say physical experiences or things that even happen outside of your own incarnation, like you might read about, you know, like
mm,
history book or a biography, you know, and these are things that there's evidence or you yourself experienced, and then there's
yeah,
the imagination,
hmm,
which you could also throw in, let's say, dream state or lucid dream state. I do a lot of
yeah,
lucid dreaming,
hmm,
and like in terms of code, in terms of information, uh, I kind of go with you. Like that's really one and the same thing. So, for
I
instance,
would,
we have a lot of people come on the show, and you have, you know, it's just a wide platform that supports anybody's story and
yeah,
respects everybody's
yeah,
reality. So you have dragons, you know, other elementals. You have, of course, abductions, visitations, ETs, angels, archangels,
yeah,
nature beings. I mean, all kinds of different experiences.
yeah,
People that have, you know, have different experiences. Let's just say outside this realm, in other dimensions, other
yeah.
timelines. So I don't know. You know, it's almost like
No, and I don't know. I mean, there's really all I ever speak about is not knowing.
hmm,
And the whole illusion that self tells itself is that I do know because I've had this, or this seemingly has happened to me. I know that there are other incarnations. I
yeah,
know that, but of course, the root of there are other incarnations, or there could be other incarnations and dimensions, is that I am incarnate here. So the whole sense of the possibility of reincarnation or other incarnations comes from this really what we'd call ordinary human incarnation as me inside this body.
yeah.
And what I'm speaking about, or what wants to be said here, is that there is no, that's the great illusion. The great illusion is that you are inside that body incarnate. There is no one inside. There isn't, so empty inside, empty outside.
Yeah, it's all you.
There is no inside and outside. And you could say it's all you, but when it's empty, that becomes nonsensical. And there's no there's no need to call it you because you don't know you from anything else. So it isn't all you. Because all you is another story told by me because I'm sick and tired of being shut inside this body. I want to be everything. Because I don't like I don't want to play small anymore. I
Mm,
want to be, I love the grandiosity. Most selves are essentially grandiose in that they're looking to be special and they're looking to be expansive.
mm,
And i'm I'm not speaking about self expanding and becoming one with everything.
yeah.
I'm saying that every human being is already empty with the illusion of being full of themselves.
Yeah. Get out of the way. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
the,
relate to that. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And to
yeah.
me, be it a future life progression or past life memory or any other thing that occurs, you know, I mean, we've had, you know, beings, you know, and that's another thing when it becomes two or more people and you experience the same thing, you know, like Morgan and I had 6 translucent humanoid beings appear in our bedroom, and was that aspects of us that were materializing? Was that soul family? Was that, something else? I mean, at some point, there's so many questions. The best thing to do is just to retreat and say, it's beyond surrender. I am nothing. And then when you can really do that, because you can't fake it, right? I mean, you can't fake enlightenment or expansion, or whatever that is, and when you really surrender to what you're saying, which is ultimately, this is bigger than me. I mean, but it's not. It is
Well,
me, right?
you
It's
mean,
like,
I mean, what I speak about is not that it's bigger than me, but it's exactly the same, which is empty.
yeah, yeah, like
So
you're nothing.
the oneness, I mean, I do speak about oneness, but the oneness is the obviousness that everything is empty, including what I called myself. And in that, there's just complete equality with everything.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a frequency or a set of frequencies, right? I mean, your vibration is if your
I mean, you can
vibration is
say that,
carrying it.
but yeah, and there's quite a few speakers who speak in a similar, about what I speak about, but they talk about energy and frequency a lot, but I don't have any sense of that. For me, that's just it's just a story laid on to try and make sense of it, but I don't know any of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like many people have had out of body experiences. I've had two, and two that were like, really etched in my memory, right? And
Right.
and then there's other stories, and I know I'm with you. Even if it includes ETs and archons and so on and so on, they're all part of the physical reality. They're part of this video game, or however you want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, you have and I look at really everything as being, I guess one way you could put it, like a potential program or an overlay. Like maybe the stars are an overlay. Maybe they're like the inside gears of the clock, and everything's just happening as it's happening. But yeah, it's like, for instance, the narrative or belief or whatever that a lot of people share, which is we're a soul. We're an aspect, a fractal of the one. So we are the one. We are the drop in the ocean, and we are the ocean. And we go through these, this progression of or procession of incarnations to expand the soul through the experience itself, which to me kind of jives, because I look at the universe as like, okay, I'm just one. What happens if I split? Or what happens if I exhale? And like, it's always in motion. It never stops. And so it's always changing, right? Like you look at the seasons, you look at the precession of the equinox and all that stuff. I don't know. It's just, but then again, it becomes so, especially on the human realm, it becomes so talked about and over complicated that really the only thing to do is go back to that simplicity. I am soul, for me, or whatever your personal mantra is. I am nothing, because to me that means I am everything. And how do you sustain that moment? Are we supposed to sustain that moment?
No, there's nothing to be sustained. No, I don't know how, but it's obvious that this appears and disappears simultaneously, and there's no time between. So what we call, there isn't a now, there isn't a past, and there isn't a future. Time is completely illusory. And
Yeah,
I mean
definitely.
that in the most complete.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't mean in an abstract way. I don't mean it like that. I mean, there is really no knowing of time. And yet, I mean, it's the most consistent thing that humans take as a given reality. And of course, there is a reason why virtually all human beings buy in completely to the concept of time as a truth, as a reality, because without it, I don't exist. For existence, continuation, my continuation, for me to have a life and an existence, there must be time.
Yeah.
And that's why for virtually all selves, the message that I try and speak about is not heard, it's dismissed before it's heard, because there's no place for me in it, and me and my existence, let alone, a series of incarnations. The absence of time dismisses this incarnation completely.
And then again, that's a belief. So it's like,
Well,
it's like, I don't know if I'm worm dirt when this body expires, or if I'm an eternal soul, because I can't prove either one.
no,
Right?
no,
You know
it's
what I
not.
mean? So it's like, again, so to me, like all this stuff that we talk about, most of it's the personal experience of the person. But the story comes out in the story, in between the words, and it's more of like an alluded type of message. But it's like everything just puts you back to the present moment, because that's all there is, right? You have information from what we call the past, or you have information from experiences that you have that may be non-physical, or whatever you want to call it.
We don't know where, you could say we have information, which is memory, but we don't know where that comes from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's no knowing where thoughts come from, and memory is just a thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, the point being, whatever you've experienced, you can either, I guess, in a way, kind of take it with you, as an appendage, or you can leave it, take the information and leave it, just to utilize as with a bigger palette to paint from, basically. Yeah. But there's
a lovely guy, Paul Hederman, who talks. He talks a little bit from an AA point of view, from addiction point of view, but he speaks about non-duality, and he often speaks about traveling lighter. So that's what made me think of him. What you just said about, you can either carry everything, which you think about what most human beings do. They're carrying as much baggage as they could possibly carry, and wonder why they feel so burdened.
Yeah. And then too, like, see, I'm still punchy. I forgot what I was going to ask you. Let me shift gears for a minute. So when this started for you in 1993, obviously it was a big deal, because it changed everything. You lifted the curtain, and or it was shown to you, and then you start this journey. Were you like a normal person at the time? Were you married, kids, working a job as a PE teacher? I'm
guessing I was the epitome of normal.
Yeah. So
whatever that means.
Like your partner, were you partnered up? So like your partner at the time, how did they react to that? I mean, were they no good?
Not great at all. No, to forget about it. Just forget about it. And to be honest, that's what I pretend. So there was a pretense of forgetting about it and just getting on. Yeah. But of course, it won't go away.
Now, were you able to stay in that partnership, or was there just too much of a difference of perspective?
Well, I mean, there's another story. So no, I wasn't in that relationship, but then I started a new relationship, and I got divorced, and I got remarried. And what actually ruined that relationship was not that awakening at all, but what I'd call the seeming annihilation of my sense of me. Which was, that was a lovely moment. The seeming annihilation, as I called it, that life came and wouldn't let me lie, wouldn't leave me alone until it's like it wanted to destroy me, you could say.
Death.
That was over a matter of 2 years, I guess. Increasingly desperate, more and more despair, physical suffering, really physical pain as well as emotional, and so much fear, terror. Now that destroyed my marriage, really.
Well, after all, I think the only thing we can actually prove is that we're all dying.
Yeah, that's
You
for
know what
sure.
I mean? So there's cycles of
Yeah.
dying within the dying cycle. What are your thoughts? Because I mean, I started, I guess, seeking in earnest about 22, and I started reading a lot, just
Yeah.
literally hundreds of books,
Hmm.
over about 20 years, and I was always, I was always intrigued by the Eastern philosophies and secret fraternity texts and just different things, but I could see the difference between like what I felt and what I saw, like say in the Western world. Not that one's better than the other, but what I noticed about the Eastern philosophies is very much a non-dualistic type of,
Yeah.
type of thing, and almost like an irrelevance. I mean, I get the whole thing about something's relevant till it's irrelevant, but life itself to me is the journey itself, right? Like, I mean, life to me is the journey, it's the destination, and you wake up and go, wait a minute, I'm just here, and it's about living, and that's all I got.
Hmm.
But like in terms of, well, like with that kind of in respect to that, what are your thoughts on quantum theory? Like quantum creation, like our thoughts are creating things. Like for instance, if you say ABC, then you're putting ABC into a minimum into the field of
Hmm.
your own life, which
Hmm.
again seems to lend to, like you said, I think it's a hard thing to explain coming from the non-duality thing, because really there are no words, right? But I mean, what's your thoughts on creating the imagination, the thoughts that we
Yeah.
create? Oh, that
With that,
person.
well, it just seems how it seems here is that, yeah, thoughts can seem to create reality. They can seem to, so, and beliefs especially, because I see what I want to believe to be true.
Right.
And the human brain seems very skilled at noticing what it wants to notice and avoiding noticing what it dismisses as irrelevant. There's a thing called the reticular activating system. That's what it's called in psychology, which just means that if it's significant to you, which of course to most human beings, beliefs are the most significant aspect of being me, of being, it's what I want to. It's very powerful at getting the human being to notice everything that supports my belief and not noticing anything that doesn't. It's a bit
Yeah.
like, when you buy a new car, you buy a new red Audi car, and you go out in your red Audi and you're seeing red Audis everywhere. That
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
and I just think most human beings, that is just how the brain works.
Well, I mean, again, you're there and I'm here. I mean, we can take this, we can take this so many different ways, because there's so many different connotations and levels. So it is hard to talk about these things. But like you're there and I'm here. Is there a relationship between what I'm thinking about you and what you are thinking about yourself? If we are truly one and the same thing, is there
No,
some type of? I mean, do we know?
no,
Do
we
we
don't
know?
know.
If I
But if but if
if
you're asking me, if
yeah,
you're asking me for opinion, because I haven't got the only thing I know about what you're thinking is what I infer from what you say and your manner and your
yeah,
demeanor. It's all inferred. I mean, I know people who say that, they can at least not read someone's thoughts, but they can pick a vibration. They can do that.
yeah,
Well, I don't know what they mean by that.
yeah. I mean, it's such a fleeting thing too. It's no different than your experience in 1993. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. Like, for instance, it was probably a week and a half ago. I was talking to some guy, and he lived in Canada, and he was talking about his journey and how it started, and it had to do with
Yeah.
indigenous and had to do with animal totems. And I just saw this wolf flash in my face,
Right.
and I said, "Is your animal totem a wolf?" And he said, "Yeah, actually it is." So I
Yeah.
don't know how you explain that, but you
No,
mentioned you.
absolutely. I think what I'm not trying to explain anything. If that's and then there's the truth.
I know that's what I mean. I
And
get
I have no explanation for that.
yeah,
And the thing is, before, I would say before, as if I think about, I wanted to rationalize everything, I would dismiss it because it didn't make sense to me and my paradigm of reality. And I'd dismiss it as, well, of course, that's wrong. It's rubbish. It's nonsense.
Well,
But there's no dismissing anything now, really.
Right. I got lags back. So I get what you're saying, because it's like, it fits me, right? And I guess I actually, I mean, I feel the same way, which is, I'm not ambivalent to the question, but there's no reason to ask the question because every time I ask the question, it just comes right back to being present and you're living and so on. But you did bring up something that I think is very much, and we could talk about, this time that's been written by many in many sacred texts. Okay. You've got, a somewhat of a common story that goes back 10, 12,000 years. You got a flood. It's in all the oral histories. It's in many sacred texts. It talks about this time where there's a great revealing, an apocalypse, which means unveiling. And there does seem to be an air of that, at least from what I can tell, in these communities the last 10 years, and as well as on the earth stage. It looks like a lot of things are just coming to the forefront. But without getting caught up in the story, I think the main factor, the driving factor, and you could explain this a lot of ways, the death program, the belief of death, the question of, is there life after death? Of course, mortality, and so like, what you were describing, the annihilation of the different masks and the different identities that you had, and the burden that placed on the human experience in terms of your relationship is an example. But, a lot of people feel like they're going insane while they're waking up. I said many times, when I reawoke in 2011, I actually proved that you can lose your fucking mind and become more aware as each step. But what are your thoughts on that annihilation? And
well, that was that fear came up for me, for sure, that I was going insane. Yeah. Or if this continued, it would either kill me, and I meant physically kill me.
Yeah.
I don't mean metaphorically or spiritually. It felt like this sense of life coming to annihilate me. And I that's the only word, because I didn't have a belief in God. I didn't have a belief in spirit. I didn't have beliefs, what you'd call spiritual beliefs. So it just felt like life, and I was screaming out at life to leave me, leave me be, because you're killing me here.
Yeah, leave me alone.
And just leave me. I'll be good. I'll do anything. It was I was most pitiful. Self at its most pitiful when it's in abject terror. And of course, the people around me, the people who loved me and cared for me, it was terrifying for them, because, to them, it was insane. It was, I wasn't in physical danger, and yet there I was screaming that I was.
Right.
And I feared for my own sanity, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And
I think
in the story, what seemed to happen was, just as I thought that I might have to be hospitalized, because it did come to that point, then somehow I managed to claw back enough normality to stop screaming and acting what appeared insane.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that, no doubt. Yeah. It's, it goes hand in, and again, that's kind of a pattern. It seems to be of, let's just say, converging polarities, or getting into that field, which is, you can be on a parallel of, from human terms, losing your mind, and at the same time, in metaphoric sense, getting closer and closer to the light, or whatever.
The thing is, I think, in real terms, I think that the light is losing your mind. It's not your mind anymore. You do lose your mind. And if I was being really honest, I would say I did lose my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no concept of mind at all anymore.
Yeah.
And that was lost. That was one of the things that seemingly was lost and annihilated.
What about, okay, a lot of people, when you just, let's just throw all religions, philosophies, everything into a big box.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be safe to say, or at least for the sake of the argument, that the heart, like if we take it down to a simplicity, the heart feeling, the heart vibration, the heart, the mind of the heart itself, whatever that is, whatever it exudes or exerts. And, I could just point to, of course, our chasing and love. And also, for instance, a third of crime, crime that's harmful, I guess, is based on, love. I mean, there's some type of situation or relationship there, but like, where does the heart or the heart frequency or the heart possibility of reality or the heart itself, just what kind of role does it have? What kind of presence does it have? That,
Yeah.
which is not the organ, the heart, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that stand with you?
Well, I must admit, I don't speak about the heart at all, but
Mm.
I do speak about love. And when you said that, the crimes that are committed by love, that's not the love that I'm speaking of. That's lust, that's possession, that's passion,
Mm.
that's jealousy, and none of that. Of course, that you could say that's the antithesis of the love that I speak of, and yet, of course, there is no exception, because the nature of love is unconditional. There is nothing outside
Mm.
or inside. It's all inclusive. And but what I will say, there's one thing that seems to have died is this dichotomy that self tends to have between heart and head, or mind and heart.
Like they're
And
one. Like they're one now.
we like no, it's just not knowable that that they're two, really. It's less that they're one. You could say it's oneness, but again, there's no knowing heart from mind or head from heart. And I think you could say that's one of the great separations that most human beings do. So they go, well, shall I go with logic, my head, or my heart, which is this intuitive sense of knowing what's right.
Right. Right. And then, a lot of people in these communities, and certainly in this community, that they've had, you talked about earlier, we talked about earlier, how when you wake up, you start to lose family, lose friends, and how that's kind of part of the journey itself. One of the big challenges, I guess, is the apparent differentiation from our standpoint of our children,
Yeah.
our children, period,
Yeah.
whether they're yours or not, like
Mm-hmm.
we're not all children or something, but
Yeah.
it's one thing to let go of, let's just say, extended family or friends as you progress. It's another thing to get to that space with your own children, regardless of their age. Do you have any children? Have you had any experience that you'd share with us on that
Yeah.
side?
It's been the most difficult, without doubt. That's been the most difficult aspect of it all.
Yeah. Can you find balance in that, like you can with some of these
Well,
other
it doesn't
topics?
matter whether I find balance if my children don't, and it's too difficult for them, then there's nothing. There is nothing to be done. Because what I've found is there's one thing that is really very difficult, is that being inauthentic. Whereas before I could play all kinds of games to keep various people happy, especially if I wanted them still to be accepting of me. And I'm not saying that's utterly impossible, but it is more or less. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well, I mean,
been.
it's you
So
know,
I've got.
there's never a pat answer for anything, and that's one of the things about any philosophy. Not picking on non-dualism, but I mean
No.
anything. It's just like, see, some of these are pat answers, and again, we're actually representing, representing something that is wordless.
I will. I will. I mean, this might sound this can sound trite, but I don't have any sense that I'm speaking philosophically at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to each his own.
I
But
just,
now,
but yeah, because everyone says, "Well, that's my philosophy," and I don't. Well, it's not. I don't have a philosophy.
well, a lot
I'm.
of people on in these platforms talk about a knowing. Like why on or about 2012 did so many people, now some people were early like you, like Morgan was 99, you're 93. I've met people from the 60s, from the 1987 when the harmonic convergence occurred. Uh, and they just, I don't know. I mean, there's so many characteristics that are the same.
Mhm.
And, like on the question of children, like I think my story is very similar to many people's. There was this beginning of this period where you became, like the the Antichrist or whatever. No, I'm kidding, but like where you were seen as crazy, and then as your and I'm not saying I'm there because I'm not saying anything, but like as you come to terms with yourself, really, your awareness as it becomes, I don't know what the term would be, but say more open, that some of these, I guess the best way to say it would be like an example. So the example would be, I don't talk to my kids on a regular basis. I got 6 kids. But if I talk to one of my kids 3 or 4 months from now, it's like we just talked yesterday. Like there's not that static. And of course a lot of people in these communities feel that through their own experience that like a lot like a tuning fork. There's a saying in these communities, for instance, that if you heal something in yourself, you're healing generations forward and backwards and so on. But like there's a certain element of if my frequency attracts like frequencies. And so that'd be like-minded people or experiences with people or without people that kind of align with myself.
Yeah.
Um, that type of thing. So with children, I know it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah. So I've got 2 grown-up children,
Okay.
and I've got 2 young children.
Oh wow.
So I've got
That's
my daughters are 32 and 28,
okay.
and my sons are 7 and 3.
Wow. Nothing like round
And
2. I had a round 2, but I didn't wait 20 years.
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
I
good.
waited nearly 30.
Well, I mean, kids are such a like that takes it all back to the simplicity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, my son is he'll be 3 in March in a month's time. So
wow.
I mean, it's just complete joy. Yeah.
Do you see a difference between the generation of this second batch to the generation of the first batch in terms of just feel frequency, like the experience that you share with them?
Um, I don't know.
Mm,
No, I can't say that I do. No, I mean, for me, children are children.
yeah. And like there's obviously, a lot of conversations being had given the times.
Yeah.
But like if you had to if you had the podium worldwide, I mean, what would you tell people? Because I have a feeling it'd be a very personal kind of message. Like, what would you tell people the best thing they could do from your standpoint, day in, day out?
Wow. I really wouldn't presume to have any idea. I
Mm,
would say, I mean, the most simple, ordinary things that anyone would say if they loved someone else, which would be do more of what you like and less of what you don't like.
mm,
Follow your passion. You could say trust intuition, but the thing is, I wouldn't say it. I could say those things and they would be sincere, but I just know there's no point because every human being is just doing what they're doing, and there's no one of the harshest realities that seems obvious is that, the illusion is that you could do other than you doing, and you couldn't. So I don't ever prescribe any. I don't give advice. I don't prescribe anything. But if I was prescribing anything, it would do more. It would be do more of the things that bring joy.
Right.
And they're nearly always the most simple, aren't they?
Yeah. I just got some chalk from the kids when they moved out. Some sidewalk chalk from the kids that moved out next door.
Right.
And I, for that explicit reason, I thought, I think I'm going to go in the back here where nobody can see me and make some sidewalk art. What about, like, there's so many catalysts. And of course, if you look for it, you can find it. So, I mean, obviously, some people get triggered more than other people, but I think everybody gets a rise every now and then. What do you get triggered? What do you do to bring yourself back to a place of, let's just say, easy?
This whole notion that it's me, I would say that triggers, their conditions. They're like they're wired into the organism. That it's not me getting triggered. When a so-called trigger happens, and so there's a reaction, what I say is that I'm reacting. I've been triggered. I don't have any sense of that. A trigger is completely natural for that human being. There's nothing wrong with the triggering. There's nothing wrong with being triggered. There's the whole problem with this. For most selves, the problem with being triggered is, I need to be in control, and I don't like it when I feel, because really what triggered means for most selves is I feel out of control. My button's been pressed and I've just reacted, and I want to feel this sense of control. Whereas actually there's nothing wrong with.
Or is it a sense of control, or is it a state of harmony, peace, comfort?
I just think it's an illusion of control. That's how it feels here.
Right. So, but I mean, you don't have like a process. Like if you somebody does something that's totally just not cool, maybe to you or to your kid or something. Yeah. Do you just have a moment of anger?
There'd just be a natural. I just think there'd be a natural. Then there's a natural reaction to it.
Yeah.
And I can pretend I know what the reaction will be, but again, that's illusory. I don't know what the reaction would be.
Do you feel that you're attached to anything?
No, but there is attachment. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like I'm just playing with words.
No.
But the feeling that I am attached to things, I would say that is what seemingly died. That's what no longer appears. But is there attachment? Yeah, of course, I'm really attached. There's a great attachment to my kids, right, for example, and to many other human beings. But attached sounds like possession, and the difference is I have no sense that they're mine at all.
Yeah.
So well, but I would say the love is more obvious without that sense of. Because attachment has a sort of connotation of possession, doesn't it?
So you just mentioned love and kids, and I mentioned heart earlier. I would say that what you're acknowledging and recognizing is what I was referring to as far as the heart goes. So maybe attachment is a favoritism to, let's say, the soul that's your child versus, me, or whatever the case is.
Oh, I don't doubt. If there was you and my son in a burning building, I'm not saving you, am
I? Yeah.
Well, I'm just not.
No. I that's what I'm trying to say. What is that? Is that a
I think
something that's illusionary, or is there a base component to anything and everything, like say the God particle, right? Or
no,
life force?
For me, it's just nature. So there you go. That's utterly natural. So if a dog was in the the puppies are in the burning building, the dog's not saving me, it's saving its puppies, and I'm just like a dog.
Woof. So, do you have a piece of poetry that you want to share before we get out of here?
I don't know.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
well, I mean, what? Just make something up.
Oh, you want to rap freestyle?
I could try.
No, I don't know. I mean, you don't have to. I just was curious.
No, I can do that. I mean, if you, if any of your listeners like what or are interested, then I've got a lot of short poems on This Deafening Silence, timclissthis.com, or just on my Facebook. There you go. Shall I read you something?
Yeah.
Go on then. Here we go. Here, now, presence, awareness, consciousness, light, being, this, that, oneness, wholeness, completeness, emptiness, nothing, no thing. It really doesn't matter what words we use. You can't be in it or out of it. You can't become one with it or be apart from it. There's just being it. This is it. That's it. And it's not an it.
That's the void.
That is indeed.
Yeah. Art.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll read you one more. It's easy for seekers to get stuck trying to find the perfectly resonating expression. You won't find that. It's like waiting for the same sunset. Your expression will never exactly match another's, even though there are no others and there is no yours. I mean, I wrote that because so many seekers get strung up on this idea that you could put the words together and that would be the truth. Whereas it's very obvious that words don't even touch what we're speaking in. No,
they don't. We'd be better with vibrational sounds.
Well, the best, I always think, I don't know about vibration or anything. The best we've got is a hug.
Very human. Very human.
I'm a big fan of hugging.
Yeah. Well, that's a very human, uncomplicated. I mean,
I think it's so direct.
Yeah. And you can feel like when you get a hug and it's not.
Oh,
legit.
Yeah. Oh, straight away. Yeah. You don't know how but it's bloody obvious.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
So what part of England do you live in?
I live just outside Cambridge.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating.
If anyone's in London on Saturday, I'm speaking in London, Hampstead on Saturday.
Cool. Very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I appreciate you.
A pleasure chatting to you as well. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I wish you and your family the very best in all your endeavors.
Yours too.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Bye.
Nice